Krishna Maharaj. So the assignment was to read Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila, 5th chapter, 14th verse, and explain what is the disease of the modern so-called civilized man. So the translation of the verse...
To read what? Do what?
To read Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila, 5th chapter, 14th verse,
right,
and explain what is the disease of the modern so-called...
The disease of the modern so-called...
civilized man.
Civilized man, yeah. Civilized animal.
So the translation of the verse is, beyond the material nature lies the realm known as Paravyoma, the spiritual sky.
Take your mask off.
Like Lord Krishna himself, it possesses all transcendental attributes such as the 6 opulences. Material creation is actually made of 24 elements, the 5 gross material elements, the 3 subtle material elements, the 5 knowledge-acquiring senses, the 5 active senses, the 5 objects of sense pleasure, and the Mahatattva, or the total energy. But the Bhagavad Gita says that there is a world beyond, which is of eternal nature, or Sanatana, known as the spiritual sky, Paravyoma. The material world is manifested by Krishna's external energy, and in it we can observe the variegated nature due to various karmas. But the spiritual sky is manifested by Krishna's internal energy. Everything there is qualitatively the same. Everyone has spiritual forms that are similar to Krishna, and everyone is of good nature. The spiritual sky is filled with Brahman, or the rays of the spiritual sun, and the Vaikuntha planets reside in that Brahmajyoti. The highest of all these spiritual planets is Krishna Loka, which is divided in 3, Dwaraka, Mathura, and Goloka Vrindavan. Empiric philosophers say that anything beyond the material nature is inexplicable. To them, the kingdom of God is a mystery for the gross.
Is what?
To them, the kingdom of God is a mystery. That doesn't make it a myth, because the billions of material planets in our universe are still a mystery. They may eventually, by dint of scientific development, discover that there is as much variegatedness there as there is on Earth. There are even better economies on other planets and optimized gravity. All this is explained in the Srimad Bhagvatam, but these modern men will not understand until they have discovered how to fly to other planets in order to see for themselves. So that is the disease of the modern civilized man, their disbelief of the revealed scriptures. They cannot understand the spiritual potency, which is visible right through the inexplicable laws of nature. If you see a banyan tree fruit, it has millions of seeds which then propagate to create millions of other banyan trees. Many such things like these modern scientists cannot explain. The truth is that everything is actually inconceivable. The truth is only revealed to those who are suitable. All species have unique development of knowledge according to their capacity. In the human form of life only, it is possible for spiritual development. This is explained by Srila Prabhupada. The human form of life is desired even by Brahmaji. Brahma and other demigods have much better material bodies than human beings. Yet the demigods, including Brahma, nevertheless desire to attain the human form of life because it is specifically meant for the living entity who can attain transcendental knowledge and religious perfection. It is not possible to go back to Godhead in one life, but in the human form one should at least understand the goal of life and begin Krishna consciousness. Purport of Srimad Bhagvatam, 3rd Canto, 15th chapter, 24th verse. So for us to become realized, we need knowledge from the right source, and that right source is the Vedas. We in our conditioned forms have a paradoxical, or absurd or self-contradictory desire to verify everything with our brain, but everything is actually imperfect with the senses, and therefore it is not possible to know. Speculative knowledge is always imperfect because it is through the limited senses, but perfect knowledge is received through the acharyas who have staunch belief in the shastras. How do we know something is right when we haven't understood or experienced it? Logically, we can see by example. Do we want to follow the millions of materialists whose lives are an example of distress, or do we want to follow the few precious souls whose lives are the examples of success? Just because the spiritual world is not visible doesn't mean that it is not there. Just like we cannot see the air, but we can feel it when we are positioned properly. Similarly, we cannot see the spiritual world, but we can feel it and we can even live in it by sincerely following the Krishna conscious principles by the mercy of the spiritual master. To conclude, Srila Prabhupada says in a morning walk in LA, December 7th, 1973, his disciple Karandar Prabhu says, They say when we offer prasadam, it's just a faith that a god accepts it because you cannot see God eating. Srila Prabhupada says, no, you cannot see. I see. I am not a fool like you. I can see, therefore I offer, but you cannot see. So I have to open your eyes. You come to me. That is our propaganda. You are blind. You are suffering with cataract. I shall operate and you'll see also.
Haribol. Yeah, the main problem is the modern men don't believe, or modern people don't believe in the Vedic scriptures. They think they're mythology. Even the Indians call it mythology. They call the deities, they say, statues. So they have no access to understanding the existence of the spiritual world because of those preconceived ideas that they learned in school. Thank you, brother. So, Samart?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So the homework was to read Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela 5.14 and explain what is the disease of the modern so-called civilized man. There are 24 elements in the material cosmos according to Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela 5.14, which are as follows: the 5 gross material elements, the 3 subtle material elements, the 5 knowledge-acquiring senses, the 5 active senses, the 5 objects of sense pleasure, and the Mahatattva. Material science think that anything beyond the material universe is inexplicable and non-perceptible. However, in the Bhagavad Gita, it is explained that there is something beyond the 24 elements of this material cosmos. This is the spiritual sky. Everything is spiritual in the spiritual sky, so the qualities of Krishna are all situated there. The spiritual sky is the manifested internal potency of the Lord, and is different from the material sky. A gross scientist thinks that whatever is beyond the material cosmos is a mystery. Their disease is that they cannot believe that anything that is stated in the scriptures. Yet these gross materialists, puffed up by the false sense of material advancements, have concentrated all their energy in economic development, ignorant of eternal spiritual potency. This is because of the 4 defects everyone has in this material world: mistakes, illusion, cheating tendency, and imperfect senses. The material scientists also do not know that everything in the material world is temporary. All their material advancement will be destroyed. Therefore, all their efforts are useless. Now that we know that the scientists' realizations are imperfect, we can gather the truth from the authorized scriptures. The true source of knowledge is from the bona fide scriptures such as the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagvatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and other Vedic scriptures. The knowledge may be hard to understand when we first hear it, because we may speculate. However, after constant hearing and repeating of this knowledge from a bona fide authority, the knowledge can be understood with no doubts. Therefore, the disease of the modern man is he cannot understand the scriptures, but by constant hearing of the knowledge, he can realize it.
Very good. Haribol. All glories to Prabhupada. And Sanmukh.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So the homework was to read Chaitanya Charitamrita 5.14 and explain what the disease of modern civilized man is. The material modern so-called civilized man believe that the only way to transcend the pangs of material life.
Take your mask off.
The material modern so-called civilized man believe that the only way to transcend the pangs of material life, which include birth, death, old age, and disease, is by the so-called advanced material knowledge. Such a material civilization is very highly attached to family comforts, high standards of amenities, enjoy life by partying. It's highly centered around animal killing and is therefore misled, and everyone wants to enjoy in family life until the last moment and are therefore suffering. By so-called advanced material knowledge, they believe that the only way they can be free from the cycle of birth and death, and therefore enjoy material life eternally. But from a Krishna conscious point of view, such advancement is only binding such people tightly into the material way of life. In the purport to Isopanishad 9, Prabhupada states, in the same way, modern civilization is a patchwork of activities meant to cover the perpetual miseries of material existence. All such activities are aimed towards sense gratification. Thus, the aim of real education should be self-realization. Realization of this... Huh?
Should be what? The real aim of education is?
Should be self-realization.
Self-realization.
A realization of the spiritual values of the soul. Any education which does not lead to such realization must be considered avidya or nescience. And to culture such nescience means to go down to the darkest region of ignorance. Therefore, even if you are highly materially advanced by getting into a good college, getting a high-paying job, or many PhDs and degrees, none of this will help us attain the ultimate goal of life, which is to serve Krishna eternally in Goloka. But the best way to attain the ultimate goal of life is by serving the Guru, chanting the Maha Mantra, and dovetailing all of our materialistic activities to Krishna. An example of such dovetailing is by, instead of learning an instrument to play material music, we can use it to play songs for Krishna. In Prabhupada's letter to Kurukshetra Prabhu, dated 23rd July 1973, Prabhupada states, the modern civilization is so corrupt, and as sinful activities are more and more committed, the people will be forced to face more troubles by nature's orders. Our business, however, is to simply take shelter of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and pray to the holy name to give us protection. We shall be unaffected by all that will happen, and Krishna will provide us with working facilities. Be assured of this, that the devotees will be protected by the holy name. Others will have to suffer in the days that are coming. From this statement, we can understand that the troubles such as the COVID-19 is nature's orders because of the many sinful activities we committed. But instead, if one chants Krishna's name, he will protect us and make sure nothing will happen to us. An example of such an instant is when during COVID a year back, every temple in Seattle was closed, but then Krishna's temple was open and the food trucks were continuing to serve people all around the Seattle area more than ever. Therefore, by taking shelter of Krishna's feet instead of the material civilized man, we can attain the ultimate goal of life, which is instead of continuing to go around the cycle of birth and death.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, homework for next week is read Canto 2, Chapter 10, verse number 9, and Canto 2, Chapter 10, verse number 17, and explain the interconnectedness or interdependence of everything in the universe, everything in this material and spiritual world. Interdependence. Because today, everyone thinks they are independent. But in reality, no one is independent. So it's a very important point to understand. And there's interdependence of everything ultimately to Krishna. So, yeah, do that, give examples, and thank you very much. All glories to Prabhupada. Actually, the idea of independence, just like, Ukraine wants to be independent. The 13 colonies, British colonies in North America wanted to be independent, right? That whole concept of independence was emphasized in the period of enlightenment, which is around the 18th century, and especially the English philosopher John Locke, L-O-C-K-E. And he's supposed to be the father of the American Constitution. So You might want to, if you have time, look up John Locke and what his philosophy was. And and he was probably the most prominent philosopher of the Enlightenment. Enlightenment, and that's in the 18th century. So this idea of independence